Welcome to the Midweek Howl, the non-paranormal part of the From the Shadows podcast. I sound terrible? Why do I sound terrible?
I mean, it's just your mic or something. I got a little reverb or like an echo box or something.
Really? Still?
Yeah, maybe not so bad. Did you move your head or something?
I just moved it away a little bit. That's the problem is I'm doing this. I'm not technically savvy. Phil kind of, fixed my mic a little bit. And
yeah, it sounds better. Go ahead.
Sounds better now? Okay. I'm sitting away from it. Phil's always telling me, make sure of my levels. I don't even know where to see my levels.
Well, don't you see it over there on your window? Don't you have your...
All I have is on my screen is you and my Skype windows. That's it. I got nothing else.
Is there anything else?
No, there isn't anything else.
And don't worry about it.
I'm not going to worry about it. So I want to jump right in today because the news last week was one of the top stories was the shooting, the murder of the CEO of UnitedHealthcare on the streets of New York. So your first impression of that, who hired that guy and why? And why?
They got to get their money back.
I will say this.
I mean, I guess he is dead, but he is sloppy as hell. I'm surprised he's not in jail already.
You mean the shooter?
Yeah.
Now, did that seem to you to be a guy who was a contract guy or just somebody?
So what? Crazy dude shooting somebody. Happens every day in America.
You think so? You think that's all it was? Really? Huh?
Yeah, because a contract guy would just kill him, and you would be on 55 cameras and walk up to a street. I mean, that dude was making a statement. That guy was making a statement, probably a gay lover or something like that. And the inscriptions on the bullet casings, not the bullets, on the shell casings, was there to what great movie was that when he told them to paint something on the wall and they said, why? And he goes, oh, it'll screw up the investigators. They'll try to figure it out.
Wasn't that Charles Manson's? That was Charles Manson's instructions, right? To throw.
That could have been. Is that where I got that from that book? I got it from somewhere.
What he wrote they wrote.
Yeah, whatever. Pigs. What did he write? I forgot what he wrote.
Well, they were trying to start a race war, is what they were doing, and they wanted to make the cops think that it was black people that went in and shot those people up, and then they did it at the I'm terrible with the names, but the other people the next night that were murdered.
LaBianca, the LaBianca murders.
Yes, the LaBianca. Yeah, because those were the people that owned like the grocery store or something, right?
Yes.
And so they wrote stuff on the walls to try to make the cops think they were, black radicals trying to start a race war.
Can you still say blacks?
Well, that's what they were, right? African American.
Yeah, but I don't think you could say that. You don't know if they're really from Africa either.
Well,
so I think you're like three. I think you're two. I don't know. I think even African Americans out now. It's something else. It was black back in our day, and then it switched to African Americans. I thought they had something else now. When I say they, the politically correct. I mean, either one works where I'm from, but.
I don't know. I just remember I had this one of my best friends in college, Walt Wilson, was a black dude. And he wasn't like back in
that name sounds so
Walt Wilson.
Yes, sounds so traditionally white, does it not?
The funny thing is our buddies found somewhere a political sign that said Walt Wilson for sheriff. And they stole it out of the yard.
Or what'd they do?
Yeah, they stole it out of whoever's yard it was. I don't even know where it was, what part of the country Walt Wilson was running for sheriff.
It could be anywhere. Hell, there's a lot of Wilsons here north of the river. I think that's a great name.
But okay, so when we grew up, I don't think. I mean, a lot of our listeners are from our time.
Using your words,
and they will understand. No, they will understand. Like, if you didn't grow up around black people, you had a misconception of what black people were based on the prejudice of your parents and grandparents. I did, I mean, I didn't have that, but my grandparents and parents, my dad specifically, had a let's see, prejudice against black people based on a false.
Was there a lot of black people around them or something, or what?
No, that was the whole thing. They weren't even around black people. Okay,
That's what usually happens.
To even form a real opinion. So anyway, so growing up, they would tell you, they were, for lack of a better term, they were ghetto. They would, your whole idea of a black person was somebody who walked around in the neighborhood, didn't go to work, talk jive or whatever you wanted to talk. I mean, now, mind you, I'm speaking in 70s terms. Okay. So when you get to school, 20 years after that,
finds people that really knows what the ghetto is.
Yeah. And you get to
get around, because there you know, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah. You get around dudes that really lived in like East St. Louis and Detroit and took,
nobody lives in East St. Louis. So go ahead.
Is it that bad?
Man, are you? Well, it's.
No, I went to school.
Essentially, it's essentially abandoned when you drive through it. I mean, it's abandoned houses, abandoned parking lots and factories. I mean, there ain't nothing there, which I'm sure out in you're in Rust Belt, so I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? It's like, it's like nothing.
I played college football with a dude from St. Louis, and I'm sure he was from East St. Louis back then, and it was just bad. But anyway, that's the, so then you get to meet these dudes, and they're nothing like the stereotype that you represent. Well, Walt was even less. If you talked to Walt on the phone, you'd have thought he's a white guy. There was nothing African American stereotypical about Walt. Okay.
So for the first listener, we're far enough into the thing, they're already Googling him up. So go ahead.
They're already Googling Walt.
I don't use names on the show, but go ahead.
Anyway, well, he's dead. Walt's been dead.
Serious? So he did live the life?
No, he didn't. No, I'll tell you how he died. Anyway, he so the first time he played basketball at Malone University with a couple of my really good friends. And Walt came home, hang out. I mean, he's the guy we knew in high school because he played at a rival high school and basketball. So he comes home, and as he's coming home, I'm telling him, well, first off, I remember being in a conversation with some people, and a person made the comment about a colored there was a colored person there. And Walt just kind of tilted his head like, and he stopped the person. He goes, oh yeah? Well, what color were they? And the person's like, what do you mean? And he goes, well, you said there was a colored person. Were they like blue? Were they green, yellow? Like what color were they? And the person like is stopped in their track.
Uncomfortable.
Yeah, stopped in their tracks
because he didn't get taught to say black.
Yeah, well, he didn't get to talk to just say anything right. He got taught
to.
But he didn't. But he didn't. That was the more of the insult to Walt, that this guy didn't even consider Walt black. You know what I'm saying? Like,
oh yeah.
He was so like not like stereotypical of what people thought of, that the person didn't even consider Walt black, just considered him a person, which is what you should consider people, just people based on who they are. And so I thought that was kind of funny. So, how Walt handled it really well. So we're heading home for a second. Now, Walt was he was bigger, he was about 6'3", 6'4", and every bit as big as dude as me. And we're heading home, and I'm like, well, now, okay, Walt, I said, here's the deal. So my dad is not like black people. He looks at me like, what do you mean? I said, look, my dad doesn't like black people. I have no idea how he's going to react to you coming to the house and staying. Walt goes, you know what? Don't worry, I'll take care of it. And I'm like, all right. And so we get home. My dad's back working on his truck, and we go walking out, and I go, hey, Dad is a friend of mine from college, Walt Wilson. And before my dad can say anything, Walt sticks out his hand and goes, nice to meet you, Mr. Grove. Thanks for having me at your house. And my dad goes, well, it's good to meet you too, Walt. Thanks for coming. And that was it. And that was it.
What did you expect?
And well, listen, this is my dad. This is my old man who was, super prejudiced. He did not like black people. He didn't like the fact that I listened to rap music, which wasn't even rap music.
Oh, you didn't tell me you listened to rap music.
Well, like Run DMC, Curtis Blow, and stuff. Oh, geez. We're not talking about like Public Enemy and.
I didn't have a problem with NWA.
And NWA. I listened to it like it was more R&B, like the old school guys. But and he hated Eddie Murphy.
That's enough for me to.
he hated Eddie Murphy because back then, it was the comedy specials, and Eddie Murphy.
I guarantee it. Raw and.
Oh yeah, he thought. Well, because my dad could cuss and swear like that, and he's working in a factory. Why does this guy get to cuss and swear and make all this money?
Because he's got the balls to stand up in front of everybody.
He's really talented
because he was black.
Yeah. It really didn't have anything to do with him being black, but the fact that he was black, my dad was upset. So it was. So it was quite a eye-opening experience how Walt handled that, and it was kind of cool to see that the barriers that my dad had built up, and he was a hard dude, just crumbled. And then sadly,
I think you're being too hard on him. I think it was just certain instances, and you think that he thought that way about everything when it was just he could probably give you exact instances when he felt abrasive towards colored folks.
Colored folks, jeez. Well, I just know what I know from growing up, but that's the same thing. My grandpa being in World War II, he still used what we would consider racial slurs today.
Like
and be
Japs,
like,
or what was he talking about? The Japs or the Krauts or what?
Oh yeah, all that stuff. And you're just like, Grandpa, you can't say that. But then, it's his experience with certain people.
I fought and died for those rights. I can say whatever I want.
Yeah.
Of course, so back in them days you could. Nowadays you can't. A lot of times, especially over in England, they'll throw you in jail for thinking. Did you see that?
No, they threw somebody in jail for thinking.
Yep. Now I think they've since let her out and apologized, but
Well, what was she thinking?
She was praying in her mind, and the guy asked her if she was praying, and she said, "Well, in my mind." And he said, "So you're thinking about?" I didn't really watch the whole thing because it made me so mad that I just,
That's crazy. That's crazy. Well, back. I don't even know how we got to Walt.
I don't even know either.
But sadly, Walt passed away when we were about 28, 29 on the basketball court.
Somebody gunned him down or what?
Had a massive heart attack.
It happens.
Ran one time down the court, turned around and dropped dead. And the only kind of saving grace is that we all, because we play basketball together all the time, and we all had played the night before for a couple hours, and the rest of us were too tired and beat up. And so he went
revive him or what?
No, to go play.
Oh, okay.
And he went and played at in an outdoor park, and none of us guys that always played together went because we had played before, and he wasn't there. So the only saving grace was he died doing what he loved, and none of us had to be witness to it. That would have been pretty sad, I think. But so back to the. Man, that's a downer.
I don't even know what happened there. I don't even know what happened.
I don't even know.
Say the only black guy we had on the thing, you killed him too, Jason.
Oh,
so, what the hell, dude? Maybe it's you.
Maybe it's me. Oh man, somewhere Jason is laughing at that right now. But I will say that I have. it's interesting when you do have, I mean, I think everybody should have a diverse section of friends because it really does open your eyes to what, the world's all about. I mean,
I don't know if necessarily the world's that diverse.
Well, their world, their world and how they see it.
Americans like us,
pretty much. But everybody has their different, different things they go through, and some of it is based on skin color, unfortunately. So there you go.
I don't know how you hijacked my show and turned it into the race beat of the week. I mean, you going to get Jesse Jackson on here next week or Al Shaw?
Oh, no. Oh, come on. Oh, come on. I'm just trying to, I'm asking about, so we're back to the guy that killed the guy in New York City. You think that's just a crazy guy acting on his own, trying to send a message?
Yeah.
Really?
He's probably, when it comes out, he's going to be mad at the insurance. It's either going to be a lover's quarrel, either with the guy or the guy's ex-wife, or some kind of a three-way deal, or it's going to be just a bad patient-client relationship of some sort. He bought the generic plan and thought he had the Cadillac plan, and his shit didn't get paid. So, when they catch him, if he's got stage 4 colon cancer with 30 days to die, we know he's doesn't care.
Well, I hate to laugh at that, but I thought it was weird that when they questioned the wife said that he had been getting emails about coverage or something. And I looked at Christy and I said, "Well, wait a second. How do you email the CEO of UnitedHealthcare or whatever it is about your insurance policy? That's like having your package." It's like having your package misdelivered or something, and you get a hold of the Postmaster General. Like that's
maybe he was such a good, kind guy. He had his message out there, his thing out there.
Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe the crazy wife put his shit out there to dox him because they're getting divorced.
I did hear that. Right? They are getting divorced. I did hear that. Yeah, I did hear that.
It's just there's a lot of crazy people out here, but no, I don't think if he would have had a gun that functioned if he was a professional hitman.
Well,
rack that slide and do all that crap.
Well, the one police officer said that's what led him to believe that the guy had experience because it didn't even faze him when the gun sort of jammed. But then I heard this morning that they thought that gun was a gun that a veterinarian might have used for animals.
It wasn't even designed to shoot more at the time.
Yeah.
There you go. I'm going to tell you, it's not my story. It's a friend of mine's story. I worked with a dude at the FBI, an old guy, that was one of the first people down. I guess when Timothy McVeigh supposedly bombed let me just put it this way, when the Oklahoma City bombing thing went off, right? Yep. I think I probably told the story. Maybe I haven't.
No.
He said everybody within driving distance were told to drive to Oklahoma City.
Okay.
And he was in Omaha. Does that make sense? So it was all hands on deck. We don't know what's going on. Everybody's got to go down there. And he was part of the team that went out. Who was Timothy McVeigh's partner with him in the truck?
Oh, gosh.
You know what I'm talking about. Did he work at the post office? Terry Nichols.
Yep.
And they did a search warrant out in rural Kansas, in southeastern Kansas, this farmhouse that somebody in that orb had rented. You with me?
Mm-hmm.
And he was one of the lead guys there. And in this thing was a replica machine gun, and I'm pretty sure it was a Uzi. So it was like something they would use at a movie set or so.
Oh yeah,
when they first saw it, they thought it's real. And the ATF guy was on the raid. He said, "No, this ain't even real. Look at this." Okay. But it had been handed around to a half a dozen agents by the time the ATF guy got there and said, "Dude, this ain't even nothing." You know what I mean? It's a non-firing replica. So later that night at the 5:00 news or 4:00 in the afternoon, at that time it was Louis Freya was going to get on the TV and make some kind of a press release, right? Mm-hmm. But that's back before email. That's back before anybody had anything. So these guys said, my buddy says, well, we went and turned the TV on so we could see what Louis Free had, so we would know what everybody else was doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because I mean that would be
because they didn't have text. They didn't have all this stuff.
Yep.
So these guys were way out in rural Kansas, and they didn't know if people in Oklahoma was doing something or whatever. And as he said, within the first 60 seconds of the brief, he said, and we've already recovered an illegal machine gun from a search of the residents in such and such Kansas. And he said these guys looked at each other and was like, "Who the hell told him to say that? It's fake." And they were like, "We already called back to Washington by the time that the ATF guy said it was fake. So sorry." So when I see people, these cops talking on the news and people talking on the news, I just think the dude that really knows the shit probably ain't talking on the news, So people are just telling a story.
Because he's doing the real work.
Yeah, because he's out there working, or I call them the spin ups. That's what they used to call all the time. This is getting spun up, or that's getting spun up. I hesitate just now. I almost started to go down a story about the good dude I was riding with. The director of the very first director of Homeland Security called him on his phone. And that would be accompanied to who's the head of the post office?
LaJoy, or is it LaJoy?
Yeah, whoever.
Yeah,
It'd be like him, you and your buddy out there loading the route wagon up at the post office, and they say, and your phone rings, and you go, it says Post Office HQ or whatever. I don't remember what it said, but when he answered it, it was the man.
The head of Homeland Security.
Yep.
Was he in trouble?
No, and what had happened is we called it spun up. So what happens is somebody gets a little, so there's all these tentacles of ass kissers, right? Levels of them, layers of them.
Okay, yeah.
And then it's a very dog eat dog knife place, all these agencies and the headquarters and stuff, right? So what happens is something's breaking out, and like for us, the rumor was that they being the organization and the hiring process, had hired an illegal alien, and he was in law enforcement training at FLETC. And me and my partner were assigned to that. We actually had the guy riding with us. He was a military kid who was born in a military base in Greece to American parents. You with me?
Mm-hmm.
So there was a paperwork process that I'm not really for sure that happens at these bases, that the State Department, whoever, sends all this shit back to America. So these kids are American, just like, John McCain was born in Panama and was still able to run for president, right? Because if your mother is American, the father's a little dicey, but if your mother's an American anywhere in the world, you're an American.
Okay.
Which is why I thought it was so stupid remember when the Obama birther things were going on?
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't matter because his mother is a U.S. citizen. He could have been born fucking on the moon, and he's still an American. Okay.
Well, people would argue with you about that.
So that's just the way I didn't say it. Oh yeah, there's one at FLETC right now. So, and these people get spun up with the rumors, and everybody's telling their sponsor and their juice to try to make somebody else look bad. And then it got all the way to the deal where they were about to do a press release. CNBC or CNN or whoever had called for comment, and he said, "Let me get back to you." And he called and he was smart enough at the time. I'm trying to think of his damn name. He was smart enough at the time, instead of calling somebody to call somebody. God, I can't think of his name. I can see his picture plain as day. He called down to FLETC where the guy is supposed to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
And we were what's called class coordinators. And so this guy was assigned to us. So he called us, and we were actually taking him because we had got a heads up on this. And my buddy, who was a former border patrolman, said, "This is easy. We can go to the closest port of entry, and they have the computer system. We'll be able to get the answers right from the in-house. I don't think it was text. Text is what's Treasury Enforcement Computer System. I don't forget what or the old immigration system, or INS was called. They had their own acronyms, right? So me and him had the guy in the SUV taking to the port of entry, to get this paperwork when the big boss called.
The actual guy that was in question. They had
the guy in question, because we took him with us. We removed him from the thing and took him with us to get all the answers or to lock his ass up and deport him.
Just like that. Just like that, you were going to lock him up and deport him?
Absolutely. We were actually going to firing squad him. But since he told us, since in his pocket, he had his U.S. military ID and his CID credentials, because he was a CID guy in the reserve, which is like NCIS, you know what I mean? Criminal Investigation Command. Okay. So he was a CID guy. So we figured there's no way that he was able to start this process 28 years earlier to get through all these people, to get all these fake IDs just to have them so he could infiltrate the freaking TSA. Okay. But we took him with us in case it was. We had the ability. Yes, because if you are illegal, if you don't, and I'm not going to get on, down on this tangent, 100%, up until a couple of administrations ago, if you were found to be a non-citizen, you were detained immediately and deported immediately.
And was it worse if he'd infiltrated? So, okay. So let me pose this to you.
Are you going to tell me? So the big boss called my partner. He said, speaking, because he asked for him, and he said, speaking. He goes, do you know about so-and-so? And he said, he's in the backseat of the car right now. And he said, is he a citizen? And my buddy said, absolutely. Just like he said, as much as you or me. And he goes, well, hold on, I can't vouch for you, but I can vouch for me. But yeah, he said, we went down, and he just tells them, hey, boom, boom, boom. This is what we did. We went down there. We took him to port of entry. I asked, I got to copy all this stuff, and this is bullshit. I don't know what.
So, but let me ask you this. So what happened? Whose head would roll, though, if he had made it that far and he wasn't?
Probably nobody's, because nobody in the government gets in trouble for being incompetent. You see it all the time. What if my package gets lost at the fucking post office? You think anybody loses their job?
Well, they shouldn't. You know how many packages I had this week?
Well,
I mean, what? Well, those records are sealed permanently.
There you go.
Thank you very much. I will say this. I did get sent. Okay. So I got a text message from my postmaster, and he says, hey, such and such people on this date didn't get their package. It got scanned in front of this. So there's this big apartment it's a condo complex. And even though the numbers all go in order, so to speak, okay, it goes like 41, there's a 42, but the 42 isn't by the 41. You know what I'm saying? The 42 is on the other side.
Crazy stuff like that. Yep.
Okay. So this package got scanned in front of this house when it should have went clear across the other place to the other one, which would have essentially been beside it if they had just put them in order. Okay. And so he says, hey, he goes, this happened on this Saturday. My first response was, well, I was on vacation. What do you want me to do about it? It wasn't me.
And walk your ass over there and look for it.
And well, by now it's 6 days later. Okay. And the person there. And the person is just now, calling about it. And so I just
was it an Amazon package? What kind of package was it?
No, here's what I found out. So the people didn't answer the door on Friday. So they answered the door yesterday because I knocked to check. So the lady answers the door. She goes, yeah.
I got it right here.
She goes, I took it back over to him. She goes, that's the third one that's been delivered to me. But she goes, it's actually got my address on it. It doesn't have the correct address. It actually has my address. And I go, well, is it an Amazon package? And she goes, no, it's coming from somebody the next town over who I even know. I know the person that's sending these people this package. And so I go, so this is the third time? She goes, this is the third time this has happened. So here we're getting sent around, chasing after these packages when the person has already found out 2 times before that it's being sent to the wrong address, and they didn't bother to change it. And I'm like, that's what aggravates me is people order these packages and they don't buy, stuff addressed wrong. But we're the ones that, get the crap for it.
I don't know. A lot of times when I try to order something, they'll say my address is wrong. They found a new and improved address. Use it.
What do you mean they found a new and improved address? What's that?
Usually it's got I just use the old address, 65047, the old zip code, and they want -2342 or something like that.
Oh yeah, I forget. See, I'm losing I forget what that.
And I'm like, dude, my post office over here, the whole town has got 7 buildings in it. You know what I mean? And 3 of them are gas stations, and 4 of them are body shops, or you know what I mean? It's like the post office is a single wide trailer that they were supposed to replace 35 years ago, and it's still there. You know what I mean? I just want to say, I don't give a shit how many numbers you put on it. They know where I'm at, and I know, you know what I mean?
Yes. Well, especially when you consider, you ever see an old rural route, like Joe Smith on rural route 1.
Yeah, well, I grew up on rural route 6, Jeff City, 65101.
But they didn't even have the others, they didn't have anything but the route it was on. And
that's right. Rural route 6. That's rural route 6. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's a rough week. Tomorrow, I'm sure I'm going to have over 200.
Oh, because of Christmas, right? All the bad stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's we're going to start getting hit with whatever Cyber Monday was, I'm sure. So it's
wasn't that a week ago?
Yeah, last Monday. But yeah, so it's been pretty rough. But I did since I wanted to read a story I found that I thought it might give you and me some hope this holiday season. Okay. So here's the title. Pennsylvania couple who divorced in 1975 to remarry today. They remarried today.
God bless them. Mm-hmm.
So a Pennsylvania couple who divorced nearly 50 years ago, they're planning to remarry. Faye Gable and Robert Wenrich met because he was her older brother's best friend, and she says he told them he was going to marry her someday. They were wed the first time in November of 1951 and had 4 children together, but divorced in 1975 for reasons they declined to discuss. Boy, I'd like to hear that. Both eventually remarried and remained with their spouses for many years until the spouses died. However, relatives said that they always had a good relationship and often attended family events together. They recently decided it was time to tie the knot again. They're like 2 teenagers in love. They do everything together, the couple's youngest daughter told the radio or newspaper. Her father told her, she was the first love of my life. I never thought I'd get her back. And now that I did, I'm not wasting any time. Westridge, who turned 94 on Friday, while his once and future bride is 89. They have 14 grandchildren, 14 great-grandchildren, twin great-great-grandchildren, and the lady has 2 stepsons who will all be attending the wedding Sunday. The husband to be said, I think we'll be good for now for the next couple of years. So I thought that was pretty fantastic that they decided that they were, now they'll be good for at least a couple of years. If I see the story that they got divorced again, then I might lose all
the lesson the first time, right?
Yeah. Isn't that fantastic?
I worked with a guy back in 1990, 91. It was on wife number 6, and his 6th wife was his first wife. So,
now, did you ever have a discussion with him? Why?
I had so many discussions with him. What's funny is I hadn't seen him in 25 years. I hadn't seen him since 2004.
Okay, so 20 years.
Yeah. And last year, a mutual friend of mine, a dude that he went to high school with, was my boss at a job I had back then. You with me?
Mm-hmm.
So, but happens to live down the blacktop from my uncle, and had stopped in and talked to my uncle one day. Anyway, to make a long story longer, my uncle said so and so stopped by and said he didn't realize you were mine. You know what I mean? I guess he just now put two and two together and wanted to know where I was doing and all this other stuff. And I got his number and I called him up and just hit it off, this old guy. And in the conversation, I said, "Hey, how's Jerry?" And he said, "Oh, Jerry's dead. He's gone." And that's the guy that was married 6 times. So he said he had kind of bad. He was a bad smoker. He had been a drinker back in the old days, but he still smoked like a chimney when I knew him, you know. And I guess he'd gotten in a car accident, and he said he never really got right since then, and just wasted away, you know. So I actually looked him up last year because that's the kind of person I am. I looked him up because I just wanted to talk to him because when I was a kid, I'm trying to choose my words here because I don't know if we should go down this. I'm getting misty-eyed here.
Oh, jeez.
But I started working for state government when I was 16 or 17 years old. And by the time this rolled around, I was 19 or 20. So I'd worked there as part-time, then I was full-time at the conservation department, which is, what do you guys call it? Ohio Fish and Game or Fish and Wildlife, or what do you guys call it?
Yeah, Ohio Fish and
something
Game.
like that. Okay, so but I was a blue-collar guy. I worked out in the field. I drove a truck. I ran a tractor. I did that sort of thing. But on Fridays, we would bring our trucks in to the shop, the maintenance building, which is where I actually started when I was in high school, washing trucks and changing oil and tires and stuff like that. So anyway, I was down at the maintenance shop on Friday doing my work, and Jerry come and got me and said, "Hey, can you go up top of the hill and help these guys dig a hole?" I said, "Do what?" He said, "They're digging out a water line close to the building. They can't get a backhoe in there." And this is back before they had all the little mini excavators and stuff. So now I'm at the headquarters building at the state capitol of Missouri, 3 miles from the state capitol, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a big glass, one side of it. It's only about 3 stories on the downhill side, right? So it's not a palatial building, but needless to say, there's probably 85 windows where any of these people in them windows can look out. And it's like a one-way, unless you're right up close to it, it's like a one-way glass. So they can look out at us, but we can't look in there. You tracking what I'm putting down?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I walk up there, and there's 4 dudes, one of which was a real good friend of mine, and a couple of part-timers that happened to be, since we are on the subject, happen to be black. And they're all standing in a semicircle looking down in this hole, trying to figure out how come the dirt's not coming out of it yet.
Okay.
And my boss said, "Hey, dude, can you go up there and dig this hole because they can't do it?" And I said, "What do you mean they can't do it?" And he said, "They're just not getting anywhere, and we're catching some flack. So-and-so's catching some flack," and called down here and said, "Can you?" So I'm running a big-ass steam cleaner. We had a power washer that ran on kerosene that heated the water to boiling temperature, and that's how you'd clean some of this heavy equipment, right? So I'm like, I'm doing some real shit.
Wait a second, a steam cleaner that ran on kerosene?
Yeah, so they got a
holy
big...
moly.
Yeah, so it's a steam. Imagine your.
I'm imagining that's
and it's got a big burner, and you'd fire this mother up, and you'd fill it with kerosene and fire it up, and it'd get hot enough, and it's like a instant hot water heater. You track what I'm saying? So
yeah.
Pressure washer on one end and an instant hot water with its own power source being the kerosene boiler, and it would boil, and that's how you could boil like road tar and heavy duty stuff off of equipment. It's got to have hot water.
Yeah.
So I fire this, I come out of this and I'm already wet and crappy, and I go up there. It's supposed to be my lunch break, and I go up there, and these morons are sitting around smoking cigarettes looking at this hole that's not digging itself. Now, Scotty, the supervisor, he doesn't want to get in the hole because he's the supervisor, but his subordinates don't even know how to run we used to call it a Mexican backhoe. It's called a shovel, And anyhow, the hole's not digging itself. So I get down in there and I'm trying to do my best to dig this damn hole. Well, the problem with digging a water line and a break is the closer you get, the more water you get. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course.
So now I'm in a hole that's filling up with water. I'm muddy as hell. I'm supposed to be off at noon. That's another thing. The compensation for working on the road is we get off at noon on Fridays. And it's like 1:30, 1:45, you know? And I'm down in this hole. And these same homies are now I'm kind of dug down. They're looking down at me in this mud hole.
And now who's the dummy?
Exactly. And then somebody came over there and jumped us all about standing around because all these office workers are looking out the windows and somebody said something to somebody, said something to somebody, said something to somebody, you know, the big boss or whoever, kind of like having like the Homeland Security Director call you. But they ran out there and said, it ain't getting done good enough, fast enough, whatever. And I looked up from this mud hole and I said, here, you can have this effing shuffle back. I'm leaving. And he said, you can't do that. And I said, watch me. He said, it's not getting dug. And I said, you got all these MFers to dig. Tell them to dig. And he started to follow me. And he's like, serious. And I walked down there and went down and I got in my car and Jerry come out and they said, what's going on? I said, I'm leaving. I quit. He said, do what? And I said, I quit. And I drove home. It was Friday afternoon. I drove home. And he's like, what are you talking about? So he tried to call up there. He tried to call Saturday. I used to ride to work with him some days. Monday morning, I'll never forget it. Monday morning is about 7:00, and my mom comes into my room and says, hey, Jerry's out here. And I said, what's he want? He says, he needs to talk to you. Ain't y'all going to work? And I said, no, I quit Friday. I walked up there and said, what's going on, Jerry? And he said, hey, man, they weren't mad at you. They were mad at those guys. Let's go to work. And I said, dude, I quit. And he goes, no, I didn't tell anybody that. And I said, well, I told them guys that. And he goes, yeah, but I told them you were joking. And I said, I wasn't. Sorry. I ain't never going back to that place, the morons.
So, you just never went back.
Yep, just like that. Mm-hmm. And then the first time I was back at that place, and I love the people I worked with, some of them. But 3 or 4 years later, I go back. A couple years later, I went back as a cop, and they were like, "Dude."
But did the hole ever get dug?
I don't care. Don't care. I don't even know where I was going with that story. And part of the problem is those kids that they hire a lot of young guys. So I was a young guy, right? Because they come in as part-timers or summer help, and some of them work out, some of them don't. And those people, then they won't do much because they're going to go back to college or they're just, they're not going to stick around. I don't even know where, you know what I mean? Yeah. So you can't get anybody to do anything. How did we ever get on this subject?
I have no idea.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the From the Shadows podcast. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.
God only knows what time.